Folks, all your banking woes are set to come to an end. The Jupiter Digital Banking app solves all your issues. Filling out lengthy forms to open an account is a thing of the past because on Jupiter Money, it takes all of 2 minutes to set your account up. KYC is super easy and smooth on the app, unlike other banking apps, which scan and rescan your docs and then take days to update those details. It also has some very cool, very user-friendly features which lets you keep track of your spending and even manage savings. Just visit the jupiter.money website to find out more or download the Jupiter app on Android and iOS to get started. Folks, welcome to Paisa Vaisa. I'm your host Anupam Gupta, B50 on Twitter, and after a long time, we are discussing international investing. My guests, Vinay, Bharathwaj and Sitashwa Srivastava from Stockal. And we're going to talk about what's been happening in global markets. Is international investing just a fad? The bull market is, I don't know whether it's over or not, and much, much more right after this short break.
Do you wonder why China does the things that it does? Or want to know how we could improve online privacy? Or perhaps you're thinking about how we can kickstart India's economy. If you'd like to search for the answers to such questions, check out All Things Policy, a daily public policy podcast that covers everything from employment figures to aircraft carriers. Tune in from Monday to Friday for new episodes and fresh takes.
And welcome back. Vinay, Sitashwa, welcome to Paisa Vaisa, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Thank you, Anupam.
Thank you, Anupam. Been reading B50 for a long time. Glad to be on the podcast.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Yeah.
Hope you guys don't take my Twitter account too seriously, but anyway. So tell us, what's been happening, right? Stockal is like among the largest international investment platforms. We've had international investment as a topic on Paisa Vaisa for quite a while. I've been wanting to have you guys for a while, and I'm really thrilled that you're here. What's been happening in these last 2-3 years, right? Because, if I look at 10 years ago, this didn't even exist. And then boom, 2-3 years, everything is just exploded. Walk us through your journey.
So now, just to give you a quick background, right? Stockal, when we started Stockal about five years back, the initial idea of Stockal was to be and say a poor man's Bloomberg to a large extent for the US retail investors. That's how we started the entire journey. And once we started, since we had folks and friends and peers in India, people were like constantly buzzing us and asking us as to how do they go about investing in large global companies. And that's how the entire idea of Stockal came into existence, right? So we saw a huge opportunity here. India being a large consumption market for some of the largest brands in the world, it was a sad state that we were not able to participate in the growth of these companies, right? So if you had to go about opening an account for investing in global markets, it was like non-existent, and the process was like pretty cumbersome about 3.5 years back. So we saw a huge opportunity, and we thought the way in which we got to address this opportunity is by fixing the infrastructure issue. When I mean infrastructure issue, it's more to do with how do you go about doing the client's KYC? How do you solve for the remittance issue? How do you solve for the tax issues in India, and how do the people go about filing for their tax returns and stuff? So we thought there's a huge opportunity here. And we started solving for each bit of those, problems which retail investors from India face, right? So that's how we started. That's how we saw the opportunity, and we wanted to go predominantly on a B2B kind of an approach because that's where the distribution is, and most of these large broker dealers and wealth managers, they had the clientele, and they had to have add something new into their product offering. And global investing became an pretty good complementary fit. And we thought let's take this approach, and that's how we started this entire journey with HDFC as our first client. And today we have about 85 different clients. We are expanding into MENA, we are expanding into Southeast Asia, and we are solving for a lot of infrastructural issues, so to say, to enable investors to invest in global markets pretty seamlessly.
So
very
just
interesting. Go on to that.
Just in terms of what happened in the last couple of years, right? I mean, so we started with HDFC as the first partner for distribution, and then we added Motilal, we've added IFL, we've added JM, we've added about 80 odd other partners in India and MENA and in Southeast Asia. And what we've really seen has surprised us a little bit, honestly speaking, because 10 years ago, nothing was happening, like you said. And why it wasn't happening was that the infrastructure was missing. Not that offerings were not there. ICICI had an offering about 10 years ago also. They had a tie-up with Saxo Bank. Interactive Brokers was also present. But what was not solved for initially was that account opening still took 3 to 4 days. Remittance was about 6%, as far as cost is concerned. But when we started solving for it, we first of all made remittance online. It wasn't even online. Imagine in 2018 discovering an area in finance which is not online. When you send money out for investing, you couldn't do it online in 2018, 2019. So for a year, whole of 2020, we were actually doing the reverse cash on delivery kind of model, where people would fill forms and stuff, and we would go to their house or office and collect and give it to the bank. And we did about 200 crores worth of remittances in the offline format to enable banks to actually see that there are going to be volumes if you make this easier. And so the last couple of years, therefore, have been about people sort of investing in a wide variety of securities. Initially, we thought maybe people will understand 50 or 100 stocks, brands that they commonly use. But on Stockal, we've seen people invest in over 3,500 securities. So I think that's sort of pleasantly surprised us. We can get into more of it as we talk a little bit more.
Yeah, because it's just kind of, now how many are there? There is Vinvesta, there's Vested, I think Interactive Broker. So a lot of this has picked up. I'm guessing that it's also benefited from the LRS from the RBI that has also picked up in the last few years. So what have been the key trends so far on your platforms? Any data that you can share, transactions, number of users, ticket sizes, anything that just helps us understand how this journey has shaped out over these last few years. We are in 2022. Last 2-3 years has been quite exciting.
Yeah, we've opened about 100,000 KYC accounts on Stockal, a little over 100,000 accounts. This is all over the last 22, 23 months, I would say. Strong traction started coming from, say, about Feb, March 2020. For about a year, all of 2019, we were working on solving infrastructure issues like KYC and remittance. We launched early 2020 properly, I would say. And so the last 23, 24 months of traction, we've seen about $720 million worth of transactions on Stockal. The average ticket size tends to be about $1,500 of a transaction. The average ticket size of a remittance tends to be about $4,000, $4,500 as of now. It's constantly gone down. When we started off, the average remittance was around $8,000. Now it's at around 4,000, 4,500. I think it's trending towards, say, $3,000 or so. So basically, 2 lakh rupees. And
basically, it's going more retail, right? Once we start seeing more, once we start solving for this, right, the wire transfer issues and everything, it's going more. Retail.
And also, I'm guessing that the difference between the balance and the transaction size is obviously that people like to keep a certain amount in their brokerage. Are they eligible for any interest on that?
Not yet, but not yet, mainly because the market is in the dumps. Interest rates are where they are. But we are coming up with fixed income products. Again, we'll talk about this, but fixed income products which can help you get, say, 3%, 4%.
I say that because I think in the US, if you in a brokerage account, you're allowed to keep some money out there and you earn some interest. I think in India, obviously, your regulation is pretty strict about that.
Yeah. Now, what happens there is you get the account, the monies which are there in the account get swept into a money market funds. Again, the returns are not that great, right? So we are solving for it. Like when you talk about the product offering of the future, we'll talk about it. Wherein we are trying to create a product which will earn a pretty decent returns as well. And even if you start savings from a US dollar denominated perspective. So that is something which we are working on from a overall product offering perspective. Yeah, Sitash, I think I you're telling the status.
Yeah, go on.
No, so like I said, about 700 plus million in transactions in the last 23 months and about 100,000 KYC accounts. I think people have traded about 750,000 times so far. We are processing anywhere around $40 to $45 million worth of transactions monthly. And assets crossed 1,000 crores equivalent last year. I won't tell you the exact number right now, but
you're 100 million plus, basically.
No, with so much of pitches which we are doing, right, with investors. So we get into the fractional bit also. 10,000 crores, 100 and
That's okay. You guys have not been no IPL ads from what from what I can see.
Not yet.
Not yet. The new season is coming up, so maybe that might. Okay. Products. What's been hot so far?
Yeah, Vinay, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, so from a product perspective, right? So again, like Sitashwa said, when we initially launched the product, we thought people will stick to the Fang when it was called Fang, right? Before Facebook changed to Meta. But, over a period of time, that's how people started the entire investing journey. But over a period of time, people started looking at, different products, different stocks in the platform. They started doing the research. We provide a whole bunch of research and analysis to the users as well. So, about, close to about 2,800 stocks, different unique stocks have been traded in the platform, wherein people are seeing value in different stocks. So even during the GameStop saga, AMC and all those stuff, right? There was like a huge traction which we saw. So like I said, so people are looking at different options to diversify the holding truly. And apart from that, ETF, different kind of thematic ETFs are, starting to gain a lot of popularity, among the investors in the platform. So people are looking at, say, a blockchain ETF, or an ETF which tracks different indexes. So that is something which is like pretty, getting pretty decent traction. Now, apart from that, in the Stockal platform, we have something called a stacks, which is like a model portfolio, which Stockal manages, or we tied up with third party RIAs or wealth managers who have different portfolios on the platform, and that is primarily geared towards the investing audience who wants to create a nice diversified portfolio. So it's a model portfolio. You can start investing anywhere between $1,000. You can create an SIP on it, and you can do stuff around it. It's a nice thematic stacks also we have in the platform, something which which is like pretty popular is an electric vehicle stack. So there is like a varied interest, and we keep getting the new requests from our user base, and people are actively looking at fixed income products. They want a product for helping them save in the US dollars, because again, you saw the rupee is kind of depreciating as we talk. So there's a lot of interest which we keep getting from the users, and we have a product roadmap, and we are trying to solve for most of this.
So I'm going to ask you two questions here on the industry per se. One is, I think Nitin Kamat had tweeted some time ago about why Zerodha does not want to get into this. And you guys have seen this industry shape out. On my podcast itself, I've had Vested, I've had Vinvesta, I've had Globalize. And I think the mainstream brokers are also like an HDFC Securities and Angels and all that. They're also offering something on the international side. So why? So past and present is the first question. How has this industry per se shaped out, and why is someone like Zerodha or the others not still sure about entering into it? Okay. And the second, we'll get into that later, is the future. So let's start with how this industry per se has shifted, because it's quite niche, right? I mean, this is not something that's really that big. It could become big. It probably should become big because it offers diversification. But your thoughts on the industry overall?
So I think, industry is obviously reactive to a certain extent. When you start seeing demand for a product, you want to assess whether you want to offer that to your customers or not, and then you launch if it works out for you. And then if it doesn't, if enough people don't open accounts, if enough people don't actually use it, then you may want to sunset it also and not use it. What we've seen is that I think it's a very secular trend, as far as trends go. This is not a short-term fad. This is something which is going to happen. Like you said, diversification is key. And I think industry, therefore, has responded in a positive way, because that sort of belief has sunk in at some level. There will be players who will launch at different points of time. Different industry participants will get comfortable at different points of time. They have their reasons. Zerodha's or base maybe of customers who may not find it as valuable, because there are still infrastructure issues that are to be solved for, and this is still something which is slightly more friendly for a $3,000, $4,000 ticket size kind of audience, not so much for a $500 or a $200 ticket size audience, because remittance cost is very high. Still continues to be high for a small ticket size. For upwards of $2,000, the remittance cost does not hurt you that much. So I think as far as further democratization is concerned, there are players who are waiting for the costs the infrastructure, etc., to scale to an extent that the costs come down further, then it will work for them also. But players like HDFC, for example, they went into it because they had the audience for it, the slightly more mature, slightly more sophisticated investors with higher ticket sizes. And HDFC Securities also sort of leads into HDFC Bank, the audience of which obviously has the ability to make these investments and would like to diversify. Similarly, Motilal, IIFL, JM Financial, and so on, Geojit, all these players have the audience which needs this diversification and has the money to invest, perhaps on a ticket size level. As far as they are concerned, this is long term. As Stockal, we are behind pretty much all of the names that I just took. So when HDFC launched international investing, Stockal powers that. When Motilal, JM, IIFL, etc., launch it at various points of time, Stockal is behind them as the platform which is actually powering all this. The other thing that sort of excites us is that we've taken the B2B2C route. Mainly, it sort of puts us in a relatively strong position, because if this works out for the country, for all the players in the industry, then everybody will jump in. Right? And at that time, we'll be happily powering many of the participants who are actually going live. Also because there is a single solution for infrastructure that we built. Everybody can ride on it. They don't have to recreate stuff, which is advantages for them. Just offer the whole thing as it is to their customers, and focus on selling, and focus on advising, and focus on the customer experience and so on. Leave the infrastructure to Stockal.
And also,
sorry,
just to add to it, you always need a startup to disrupt and expand the market. Right? So guys like Zerodha, when they came in with discount brokering, no one gave a chance, and look where they are, right? So I think we being entrepreneurs, both Sitash and I, we think that there is a huge opportunity. And I think once we start solving for, and we are solving for a lot of these things, right? So, once everything is solved, I think the market is going to expand. And then you will see large players like, the Zerodhas of the world might also come into the market. So the idea here is, to create the market and to expand the market, like any startup or any entrepreneur would say.
So let's talk about that then, expanding or going forward. What happens next from here? In your view, what are the new and exciting areas in international investing that you guys are seeing?
So I think one is around products, the destination. What are you investing in? I think there's a lot of democratization which can happen on that front. One thing in general about investing that I see is quote unquote high quality investments are typically available to higher ticket size audiences. Typically, advisory is available, sophisticated advisory is available if you invest a certain amount of money. Hedge funds and funds will basically take your money if you're investing upwards of say 100k, 200k, and so on. If you are investing, let's say, a couple of lakhs or anything lower than that, then you're mostly fending for yourself. You're following people on Twitter and stock tweets and whatnot, and you're asking friends, and you're depending on tips and stuff like that, right? Or you're sophisticated enough to do your own research and so on, but you're basically left to your own devices as far as investing is concerned. I think in the longer term, a little bit of democratization is going to happen, wherein high quality investment options will be accessible to basically everybody. And I think a lot of high quality investment options, again, quote unquote high quality, are not available locally. Opportunities are everywhere, right from tokens to crypto to obviously international stocks and ETFs and funds which are outside of India. So we've sort of taken a route where we are saying, look, we'll make assets available, high quality investment assets available to retail investors. How and what we will figure out. Some of these are infrastructure solutions. So we'll figure out how to, say, take a hedge fund which has a 100k minimum ticket size or a 200k minimum ticket size and offer it to people with $5,000 to invest. Infrastructurally speaking, leave it to them to make the choice of investing. But infrastructurally speaking, make it available. Take just like the way we've done with foreign stocks and ETFs. They were not accessible unless, so you could open a Charles Schwab account 2 years ago also, but the minimum requirement was $25,000 and about 3 weeks of pain in opening the account offline and so on. But we've now made it a 10-minute process and a fairly low cost process as far as remittance is concerned also. There's a lot of work that we've done on the remittance bit. So going forward, products the choices of products that we are making really are about curating relatively inaccessible products for retail investors. So, for example, a global cash management product. LRS alone, went from $1.5 billion in 2012-13 to about 20 billion last year. Predominantly, the money goes for expenses. We're basically going to encourage people to start saving and investing before they actually spend. So a product on that front is coming up, a fixed income product like Vinay was talking about for people who have idle cash in their accounts, and about 10%, 15% of the holdings are idle cash at any point of time. For non-Indian audiences, we'll actually do crypto as well. We'll bring crypto to India over time, but we'll add crypto to the same sort of ecosystem. And so on. So, over a period of time, bonds, various kinds of products which we feel people are asking.
So the fundamental thinking here, Anupam, to a large extent is right. When when a retail investor comes to investing into the markets, right, he should not segregate between, something called as global investing and something called as domestic investing. If we make the entire process as seamless and as easy as investing in the local market, in the international market, now, when he comes onto the platform, any platform for that matter, he should just think about creating a portfolio. Now, a portfolio which is like diversified. It should be absolutely painless for him. He should not think between, should I invest in a Tesla or should I invest in a Tata Motors? End of the day, if he wants to create an automobile portfolio, he should be able to do it, much more holistically, much more globally in a very seamless platform. I think that's how the market is going to go in. Globally as well. Whenever someone is coming onto a platform, they want to get a global access. Why restrict yourself geographically? when it comes to investing, when the entire world is truly borderless, and except for Ukraine and Russia, maybe. But apart from that, I think it's truly borderless. When you want to wire your remittance, kind of pave way for it. Companies like TransferWise, remittance becomes absolutely seamless. So I think the vision here from a Stockal perspective is, I think it should be one platform. You don't need to worry about where you want to invest. One seamless access to global asset classes which are not accessible until today. That's the entire vision.
Sure. So we look forward to that. And folks, on that note, we're going to take a small break. On the other side, we're going to talk about how is Stockal different. Hold on, guys. Stockal, right? That's how I'm supposed to pronounce it, right?
Stockal, yes. Stockal.
What does it mean? I mean, I'm trying to understand that. What does that mean?
So stock and global, basically. That was
okay, right.
We wanted a
.com. Stock plus global is Stockal. Okay, thank you. So we'll be right back with the founders of Stockal after this short break.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Naveen, Antriksh and myself talk about staff at Twitter panicking after Elon Musk's takeover and Rahul Gandhi partying at a Kathmandu nightclub. On the Filter Coffee podcast, Karthik talks to Hemant Soreng and Rajesh Nair, founders of Rustic Travel. It's an ice cream, you scream kind of day at Simplify. The hosts have a fun chat about all things ice cream. On All Things Policy, the Takshashila folk analyze 73 years of China's PLA Navy. And on the Life Manifesto, Zarina shares an important lesson about friendship with the story of Genghis Khan and his falcon. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're following this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Word of mouth is one of our biggest, most helpful things you could do for us. We'd really appreciate that. And also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening on. And you can also check us out on YouTube. Go check out ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. You get a list of all of our YouTube channels there. We're also doing a small listener survey to better understand how you respond to our shows and the advertising on the network. We would really appreciate it if you could spare a few minutes to fill it out. It's at ivmpodcast.com/survey. This really helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors for this week, SBI Life Insurance, India Water Portal, and Jupiter, a digital banking app.
And welcome back. Okay, guys, help me out here. I mean, this is the third year of the pandemic and the world is getting used to living with it. And this calendar year, especially, that's 2022, we've seen the price action in a lot of the stocks that used to be hot 2 years ago. Whether it's a GameStop or whether it's a Peloton or whether it's whatever, and those prices have corrected. And there's a lot that has changed in these last 2 years. And of course, you've also had a great correction. I mean, the Nifty out here, the international indices, the Russia, Ukraine, a lot of moving parts now, volatility. Do you think international investing was just this fad that happened in the last couple of years? I know that Sitashwa had a passing mention of that. Can we just go a little bit into detail about why you think, for Indians, of course, okay, that this trend is here to stay? And this recent correction, I don't know whether it's an opportunity or it spooks people. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
So I think, why I sort of mentioned that this is here to stay is because there are generational changes also happening as we speak. The market is obviously going through its own evolutionary phase, which it does every few years. But obviously people are changing, almost permanently. As the millennial investors, start investing a little bit more, as the next generation starts investing a little bit more. The younger investors haven't really seen a world which is geographically constrained in any other walk of life. When they go to study, especially in urban centers, people go to study anywhere. When they consume content, it's not like they decide that I will watch, Indian content or I will watch Korean content or I will watch, English content and so on. In every other walk of life, when they have friends or, the trends that they follow are pretty much everywhere, their life is fundamentally global. But when it comes to money, and in the case of money also, as if you've seen the trend on LRS remittances, that's grown from $1.5 billion in 2012, 2013 to about $20 billion last year. Within this, education used to have about 144 million worth of remittance in 2013-14. Education alone was $4.9 billion last year. So obviously people are spending money internationally. People are consuming content borderlessly, if I may say so. Why should investing and saving of your cash remain constrained locally? That is one reason why I feel that this is just here to stay. It is default behavior, tending towards default behavior. There will be times when international flows will reduce when the market's not doing too well. There will be times when local flows will reduce, more than international flows time, perhaps in the next 5-6 years. But I think overall, whether it's going to happen permanently or not, really, I think that question is pretty much answered. The other, of course, is when you can invest in, let's say, this about 72% of the world's market cap, 65 odd, 64-65% in the US, and let's say 8% odd India, then why would you restrict yourself to investing only in 8% of the market cap? As in
global market
locally. Why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. Diversification is key, obviously, and that is something that everybody understands. So there will be different times when different markets do well and not well, and flows will change accordingly. But I think just a larger universe is accessible in every other walk of life. Why should it not be accessible when it comes to investing? That's a very fundamental reason why we think that this is here to stay.
And again, markets will be cyclical, right? So when you're looking at market corrections, those kind of stuff which happens, and it's always cyclical, right? And when an investor is looking from a long-term perspective, and he wants to create a truly diversified portfolio, right? So there is no harm in picking up a company which is trading at a discounted rate today. So even in the global market. So again, like Sitashwa mentioned, we don't see it as a fad. I think it will be more mainstream, like I mentioned in the previous question, that down the line when investor comes onto the market, he will see no differentiation between whether he is investing in NASDAQ, NYSE, or NSE or BSE, right? So it will be like a much more holistic mainstream offering from a lot of these brokers.
Tell me about
data on that as well. And just sort of close that, I think there's some data on that as well. I mean, obviously last 3 months or so have been massively volatile as far as US is concerned, but we saw increased flows. We saw that people stopped trading that much. Like people either sold and sat on it or bought and sat on it. They were not like trading actively. I think that's reasonably sophisticated behavior, but the flows were high. Dollar was down a little bit. Most of January the dollar was below 75, so flows were increasing. Then towards the end of February, actually the dollar rose. it went beyond 76 for a while. So for those 2-3 days, the flows were low. But that again is something that people are taking into consideration, not just the market, where the dollar is at, because this is cross-border.
What about anecdotally? Do you guys, your family, friends, do they call you up or do they ping you on your WhatsApp ki bhai kya kharidne ka? Is the US looking good and stuff like that? Is that because, that's probably another behavioral change that has happened, at least in the Indian markets, right? The SIPs have actually held up despite the kind of volatility that we've seen. Are you seeing that kind of interest, just going purely by anecdotes, kind of conversations that you have?
I think 2-3 kinds of conversations. Then you can add to it. Ek to, people just saying, ki, okay, karna to hai, where should I do? What should I do? After I put money, then what? Where should I invest? Do I buy a stack or a kaun sa stock? But the other anecdotally that we've seen a lot is when IPOs happen. People in India are used to applying for IPOs. US is different in that sense. But the companies which have gone IPO in the last couple of years are extremely popular. Coinbase or Airbnb or Robinhood or whatever, right? Popular companies have gone IPO. So we get a lot of anecdotal evidence whenever IPOs are happening. People think ye wala kaise kare.
So the question which I get usually asked is, how much have you invested and what's the portfolio? Right. That is a standard question. We get asked, right? So, but yeah, having said that, there's again constantly, WhatsApp is like buzzing, right? Tesla is a little bit down. Do you think we should pick it up right now? Do you see a correction which is happening? Now, what is your holistic view on the pharma sector, and especially when COVID was like, at the peak with the vaccination coming in, Moderna, Pfizer, what do you guys think? With the economy opening up, do you think it's a good time to buy Uber or a Caribbean cruise? Stuff like that. So they're like different kind of angles to how people think and how people get in touch with you to get your 2 cents, so to say.
Okay, guys. So, a lot has also happened in the last 2-3 years in terms of the number of platforms that have come up. I just spoke about Vinvesta, Vested, Globalized Up. These are people who have come on my podcast as well. So how are you guys different? The work that you're doing versus the competition?
So you kept the best for the last time, the global investing platform.
I hope that listeners' attention is also pretty high right now.
So, Sritash, you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. I'll say something and you can add.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a time when the market is genuinely expanding. So all the best to everybody. I think there's a lot of room for growth still. It's a very small, very niche space right now. It's growing rapidly. As far as differentiating is concerned, I think we focus strategically more on enabling existing brokers, wealth management firms, fintechs, etc., to go offer international investing to their customers. For example, all the way, like I said, from IIFL to Motilal to HDFC to GOG and JM and so on, to Scriptbox and Cube Wealth and so on the tech side as well, and a variety of wealth management firms. So I think that is one area where we are different. We are less B2C, more B2B2C, or rather we have been less B2C, more B2B2C so far. On the product side, and we are like this because we think of ourselves more like an infrastructure company. So we are solving for, I think we're the first people to solve for instant account opening. For most platforms, it still takes 2 days to open an account. On Stockal, it takes 10 minutes now. We've effectively solved for remittance costs as well. For the most part, when you're investing or remitting via your net banking, it costs about 1.5 to 2.25% in terms of spread, and about 700 rupees, 750 rupees in terms of a fixed cost. We just had an RBI sandbox process go through Stockal, where we were able to bring the costs down to 50 bips in terms of the spread, and about 400 rupees in terms of the fixed costs, which will further go down. We'll bring it down to about 10 bips and 100 rupees and so on, with volumes, because we have volumes as well. I think because we focused so much on infrastructure, we are slightly different from everybody else. The next differentiation is going to happen over the next 3 to 4 months as we launch products for cash management, fixed income, as we launch products for funds, for example, higher ticket size options available in low ticket size, low ticket sizes, basically. think those kind of things other platforms do not have. So we used US stocks and ETFs as a hook product. Then we started Stacks, which was more of an asset management platform. Now we're adding various asset classes itself. I think that's where we are increasingly becoming different from the others in the market.
Okay, international investing is still pretty much unregulated by SEBI. Do you expect any regulatory changes, SEBI, RBI, whoever, going forward that could, I don't know, maybe make this easier or more user friendly?
So again, with Stockal, we are not averse to regulation, right? We are regulated in like a couple of other geographies as well. We are getting regulated in the US as well. So, getting a regulatory body to, regulate something like global investing, creates a lot more credibility, to the offering. So, if it happens well and pretty good, but even if it doesn't happen, right? So even from an investor protection standpoint, see, regulation comes into the picture, regulatory bodies come into the picture more from an investor protection point of view. That's when the entire crypto is there, because there is no investor protection, and there is stuff around it. But with global investing, the ultimate broker or the custodian of your assets, in the foreign markets are heavily regulated, right? So they are like regulated by SEC, they are regulated by FINRA to a large extent. They have their reporting standards, they have their full-fledged AML checks for onboarding. So complete investor protection is given to the client from the US broker dealer to a large extent, right? So that is one part of it. And the moment you open a brokering account with us or any other platforms, it becomes a SIPC, you get your SIPC protection, which is like $250,000 worth of protection for your equities, and another $250K for your cash as well. So overall protection is there. When you open a global investing account with someone like a Stockal, it's like as equivalent as to a retail investor in the US opening an account with Charles Schwab. So you get all the protections. It is like heavily regulated and governed by an SEC FINRA perspective. So from that perspective, investor monies are like safe. There is investor protection. What kind of communication we provide, the market is also heavily regulated. We need to get stuff cleared from a broker dealer partner. I can't say whatever I want to say. So it's like pretty highly regulated even today. But if SEBI comes in from a domestic market perspective, it would create a lot more credibility to a large extent. So let's see where it goes. But either ways, I think we are in safe hands.
Yeah, because that's the first thing that hits you, right? I mean, the whole thing about crypto has been in these last few years, how things, is my money safe when I'm doing crypto? So the same thing applies out here.
In fact, RBI came up with a sandbox like 3 months back, where RBI actually encouraged firms to remit money using a pooling mechanism, which had never happened for investment as a use case, or rather for capital account transactions. You could pool and remit for current account transactions, but you couldn't do that for capital account transactions. So for the first time, RBI actually came up with this, and we in fact demonstrated about a few hundred transactions, and all the attendant compliance was done and all, and submitted to RBI. So I think generally the environment is encouraging.
Remittance cost though, what about that? I had Wise on my on Paisa Vaisa last year, and they seemed really interesting, and the kind of UX UI, the smoothness of the entire process, doing something via them. And they're still not that big in India per se, although India is among the biggest, if not the biggest, remittance market in the entire world. What's happening out there, and what's your take on that? Because you said that cost is still pretty high.
So yeah, I mean, inward remittance has been very, very popular. India is probably the largest, like you said, inward remittance recipient in the world. All data suggests to that effect. Outward remittance has been the challenge. And when it comes to outward remittance, RBI treats the kind of remittances differently. So all expenses come under current account remittances, where banks can pool money or third-party remitters can pool money and send a single wire, therefore bringing the cost of remittance down, which gives an advantage to the investor or the user. When it comes to capital account remittances, such as those which are done for the purpose of investing, RBI forever would not allow any pooling of capital. Money had to go from the user's account directly to the beneficiary's account for all these years. I think now that RBI is open to the idea of pooling and remitting, the cost of remittance will actually naturally come down, because you can aggregate capital in a custody account and make one wire. So the cost of remittance has forever been, almost 2% one way. And therefore the narrative that to invest and then to bring money back, your cost itself becomes 4%. I think we are obviously very strongly focused on reducing this cost. And so far, as far as the sandbox is concerned, this has come down to, let's say, 50 bips from 2%. So 1/4 of the cost we are able to already do with very little like test volumes. The cost will further come down to 10 bips.
So again, to add to this, right? So with HDFC being an investor in Stockal, we are working very, very close with HDFC Bank to create, solve for this to a large extent, right? So I think the solution is up there. We are just stitching the pieces together. I think within a month or month and a half, we launch a solution which will be absolutely best in class from output remittance perspective, be it cost, be it the ease of using it. So yeah, like Sitash said, we are actively solving for this.
Actually, since Sitashwa just mentioned that HDFC is actually invested in Stockal, maybe now is a good time to tell us more about Stockal, right? Because I totally forgot about that part. I think that you're basically part of Borderless in the US. Maybe now is a good time to talk to us about what Stockal is about.
Sure. So basically, Borderless is, we are Borderless. Borderless is the holdco. We have a entity in US. We have subsidiaries basically. So we have Borderless India. Of Borderless India, we have a step down subsidiary which is regulated, which is a broker dealer in India. We also have a subsidiary in Dubai, in DIFC, Dubai International Financial Center, which is also called Stockal. So Stockal FinTech Limited there. We also have a couple of other subsidiaries in the US which are getting locally regulated, a local RIA, a local broker dealer, etc. So the entire group is basically Borderless, and Stockal is really the platform or the product in this case. And we'll make some fundraise announcements over the next 3 weeks or so. We have a couple of large banks as investors. We have one of the largest broker dealers in the US as an investor. We have a large Korean fund as an investor. We have some of the announced investors. Ritesh Agrawal's family office had invested about a year ago. HDFC obviously is an investor that again has also been announced. Overall, we've raised about 15 million so far across various rounds. And we are about just under 100 people in size at this point of time, predominantly in Bangalore, but with growing teams in Bombay and Dubai as we speak. We are getting into Southeast Asia next. So while we look at India as a key market, we also believe that there are about 20-25 countries which are very similar in terms of the existence of this problem. Money travels out mostly for expenses. People are internationally inclined when it comes to every other walk of life, but they don't invest or save internationally. So we're looking at expanding into Southeast Asia very aggressively over the next 3 months or so. We'll be in China by the middle of this year. We've taken some steps to get there as well. So 2022 for us is really about making our presence sort of in another 6 or 7 countries, 2 more regions basically. MENA is a region which we started focusing on last year, and now about 10% of our traction comes from the MENA region, largely Dubai, Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, etc. We are getting into Saudi Arabia, Egypt, etc. also in MENA, and this year we'll look at more of China, Southeast Asia. So yeah.
Okay. Last question. Plans on the business front. What can our listeners look forward to in terms of your new offerings? You spoke about a lot of stuff. You spoke about global cash management. You spoke about like a lot of stuff out there. So let's get into a little bit specifics and we can wind up on that note.
Yeah. So I think the next offering from us, again, it will take about a month and a half or so. It's going to be a global cash management account, where people can start, savings for their US expenses. And we'll also give a debit card, so it's like completely linked to your Stockal account. So it will be one KYC. The moment you complete your KYC, you will get a cash management account / a current account, and you also get a debit card, right? So that is something which has been on works for the last year and a half. So that'll be one of the first offering, for the Indian retail investors, where they can open a global dollar denominated account on the fly. They get a debit card, and it's pretty seamless. So that's going to be the next offering. And linked to that, we will be also offering a yield bearing product. So the cash which you keep on your cash management account gets swept into a yield account, so you get pretty decent returns on your idle cash as well. So that is something which will come alongside with the entire cash management offering. And apart from that, we are also working on a bunch of fund offering, fractionalized funds. People can start investing in global private equity funds, global hedge funds, in the denomination of about $5,000 to $10,000, right? So that is something which we are working on. That is probably second half of this year we will have that running. And obviously for the global audience, we are looking at a crypto offering as well. So again, this is like a pretty high level roadmap from Stockal's perspective. But I think in the meanwhile, we will start solving for a lot of local infrastructure issues, like we mentioned throughout the show, that we will solve for making the remittance a lot more cheaper, a lot more seamless, and make it a lot more exciting for the users to participate in the global market. So
yeah, sounds exciting. Yeah, I mean, $10,000 ticket size access to a global private equity fund sounds really interesting. So. Yeah. Come back here, after a few months or whenever these products are up and ready and you guys have got a good response to it, please do return to Paisa Vaisa. On that note, that's a wrap on this episode of Paisa Vaisa. My guests, Vinay and Sitashwa. Guys, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this for our listeners.
Thanks so much, Anupam. It was great being on the show.
Cheers. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, Anupam.
Thanks, guys. And thank you, listeners. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Paisa Vaisa. If you like this podcast, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can listen to us on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We are IVM Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm your host, Anupam Gupta B50 on Twitter. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for listening to Paisa Vaisa.
No material on the show should be considered as financial advice. The material on the show is for informational purposes only. Please consult a financial advisor before taking any investment decision.